Every day people play Russian roulette with hundreds of millions of dollars. You've spent 10, 20, 30 years building a company. Would you just flip a coin to see what the outcome is? Would you just take a random call and say, oh, I guess this person wants to buy the business. Just so happens to be the day I wanted to sell it. When selling your business, do not make this mistake when selecting an investment bank. It's the difference of taking care of your family for generations or eking out a retirement. It's not hyperbole to say that both outcomes are potentials depending if you do things the right way or not. The sale of a business breaks down to three main components. First is the story. Tell us about the business. What about it's good? What about it's bad? What are the troubles? What are the opportunities? The second is who are you telling this story to? You could have the best narrative in the world, but again, if empty audience, it's not going to get any traction. It's playing basketball in an empty gym. And third, what is the process? Okay, so you can tell someone a story. You have the people that actually want to listen to it. Third is, what is the process? How does it work? How do you facilitate, this could be interesting, to, yes, we have a closed deal. And if you miss any of these elements, the deal's going to fall flat. You're not going to get the audience. You're not going to get the resonation with the content and the narrative. The process isn't going to actually extract the results that you want. So selling the business, it's like pulling a chain. You want something that's on the other side of that chain, and the only way to get it is to pull this chain. Each of these components is a link on that chain. If you have one element, even if you have two elements, it's not going to get you anywhere. And even if you have all three, but there's a weak link, you're going to pull, it's going to break, and the big lunker fish on the other side of that line's just not going to get reeled in. So let's dig in first to the narrative of a business. This is the story. Where has the business been? Where is it now? Where is it going? And it has to be relatable. It has to be believable, right? You can't say, hey, I was a 5'6" fat guy my whole life, and now I want to go into the NFL combine and be a running back. It doesn't work that way. It can be optimistic. It can be a upward trajectory, as all should be. Optimistic about the future, ambitious in growing a business. However, it has to flow in terms of what was actually the past. Why is it believable that because of where it is and where it has been, that it will actually go where you want it to? But that's a narrative. And there's elements of this where there's a big mistake around the business. What a business has been is not just the dollars and cents that it made. What a business is not purely revenues and turnover. And what a business is going to be is not purely just EBITDA. And this is a location of one of the big mistakes that people make in business. So within that concept, all business can be broken down into three elements: getting business, doing business, and running the business, right? Origination, execution, operations. So define a business on those terms. Secondly, dig into the business deeper and say people, process, product. And so if you think sales, execution, and operations sit within process, who are the people within the company? What do they do? What are the roles they serve? Are there any gaps? And similarly, operations. How does everyone get paid? How does HR get handled? How do you avoid any big lawsuits? How is this thing actually fused together like a machine instead of just a bunch of spinning plates? But that's the narrative of a business. Tell us a story. Why is it special? Why should I like it? Why should I care? So secondly, we're going to talk about audience. And as we said, having the right story but no one to tell it to is like reading a book in an alley by yourself. It's like playing basketball in a gym that's empty. And I did that for several years in high school and on the practice team in college, and it's not fun. So you don't want to do it when you're actually selling your business. So the idea of the audience is, who is this most compelling to? Remember, people are driven in life by pain and the fear of future pain. And so if you are selling a business, you say, well, who has the pain that this business solves? The same way you look at a service that you're contemplating for your business, it's similar in kind of how you're positioning a company. What do they lack? What do they want? And this is a big mistake. Again, kind of circling this idea, there's a big mistake, a big thing people overlook when they're selling a company. This starts to circle around it when they're looking at an audience. Do you want to sell an ice cream cone to someone who, ice cream could be interesting? Or do you want to sell an ice cream cone to someone who's been starving in a desert for 30 days, right? Who's going to want the ice cream more? The question goes, who has the most successful hot dog stand? The person in front of a starving crowd. And so, when thinking of an audience, who is the starving crowd? Who really needs this? Who would be upset by not having this? Not just, okay, yeah, could it be kind of exciting to this person, but who would endure pain by not having this? And then you start to get to the elements of creating an audience for a business. And the third major element of selling a business is going to be the process. Again, you can have the right things to say, you can have the people you want to say it to, but if you do not put it in the proper cadence, if it's not sequenced appropriately, it's just not going to have the impact and you're not going to get the pull through. Imagine if you take someone out on a date and the moment you meet them, you just give them a big hug and try to kiss them and propose to them. Maybe those are things that are going to happen at some point along the track, but it has to be spaced out. There has to be trust earned. There has to be a give and take of information, of dialogue, of objectives. And once you do that, you build the rapport, you build the trust. At the same time, as it pertains to bad dating analogies, if you show up at a date and within the first 30 seconds you just start rambling on about how your mom doesn't like you and you can't stand your siblings and wah, the problem there is you've spilled too much information, where you don't even know if this is an accurate prospect. You don't even know if this is the right type of person that you want to be talking to. So let's get away from stupid dating analogies. But nonetheless, the point of the process is, how is this sequenced? How are you evaluating the counterparties? How are you eliminating the counterparties? And how does this pull through? And so, again, tying this together now with the other concepts, you have the right narrative, you have the audience you want to speak it to, and you spoon feed a little bit of information. You give that information out and you see what the feedback is. Based on that, you see who should progress to the next step in the exercise. Now, the exercise then has several of these steps, all of which are asking people to do things, all of which they're giving you feedback. And this allows you to separate the wheat from the chaff. If you just said to everyone, hey, come hang out and think about the company and learn everything there is to learn about it, and we'll never ask you for anything, they're all going to stick around. That's how you get 500 people that want to buy the business and then no offers at the end. And so putting them through the exercise, asking them for information, seeing what their objectives, what their thesis is, that's all parts of avoiding, again, the large mistakes that people often make in selling a company. So again, horse races go fast and the horses run fast when they are running against each other. Set them up in parallel, have them proceed together, and you see who kind of lasts throughout the exercise. And then when you ultimately do get offers from people, put all of the offers next to each other. Have them compete against each other. Say, okay, these are the variables: value, structure, transition, employees. Once you have all of these variables lined out, kind of a matrix, you can then have people compete for each of them to say, okay, the person you ultimately want to sell to is not just the best in one variable, but is going to be the best in all variables. Now, what does this all create if done correctly? Think of it this way. 200 parties you reach out to, 50 signed NDAs, double-digit offers. And the offers, not just good on some variables and allowing us on our client's behalf to optimize the terms across all variables. Start to finish, 6 months, everyone going through the same process on a parallel path, ultimately getting the best potential terms for our clients when selling a business. And so what are the mistakes people make? There's 2 of them. And in every bad outcome we've ever seen for a deal, it's the same 2. The first, not focusing on access and capabilities. If you're selling a company, you're not just selling revenues and EBITDA. You need to sell who they do this for, that being demographics, industries, geographic areas, and secondly, capabilities. What is their edge? What is the durable competitive advantage? What do they do better than everybody else? Why do they not compete on just price? That's mistake number 1. You'll find that 99% of investment banks only focus on EBITDA and do not focus on access and capabilities. Mistake number 2, they sit and they wait. They say, this is a good story. These are people that may want to hear it. Let's just blast this email out to 10,000 people. Not to mention it's not very discreet, but similarly, we just wait for the phone to ring. That'll happen. Let's just wait until everyone comes knocking on our doors saying, here's a bag of money, we'd love to buy your company. Again, if you made $1 billion a year in profit, maybe that happens, but it certainly does not happen for businesses in the $1 to $10 million EBITDA range. And because of that, it needs to be a proactive process. We need to put the story in front of people, not just saying, hey, you should be interested in this, but here is the missing puzzle piece. This is why you should buy it instead of build it. Here's the value proposition to you. Take away all points of friction, all points of constraint, and you'll find that there's uptake, there's traction. The hook lands where you want it to land in the situation. And so the mistakes, A, they don't focus on access and capabilities. B, it's a reactive waiting, hoping, praying, right? Hope is not a strategy. In God we trust, everything else requires work. And so, when we go out to sell a company, we want to extract offers. It's pulling oil out of the ground. It's not just waiting for manna to fall from the sky. And so again, if you avoid these mistakes, the outcomes will be exponentially better than if you do not. And so, if you run a business, own a business, know someone that does, or are just interested, follow us, subscribe, sign up for our newsletter. Every week we're going to put out more real information about selling businesses from the trenches of doing it every day. What to do, what to avoid, how to get the best outcomes. Appreciate everyone's time. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.